Hi guys, here we go with the second to last chapter of Picture of Dorian Gray. I hope you've enjoyed this read. We only have a few more pages to go, so let's get on with chapter 19. "There's no use telling me you are going to be good," cried Lord Henry, dipping his white fingers into a red bowl filled with rose water. "You're quite perfect. Pray don't change." Dorian Gray shook his head. "No, Harry, I have done too many dreadful things in my life. I'm not going to do any more. I began my good actions yesterday." "Where were you yesterday?" "In the country, Harry. I was staying at a little inn by myself." "My dear boy," said Lord Henry, smiling, "anybody can be good in the country. There are no temptations there. That is the reason why people who live out of town are so absolutely uncivilised. Civilisation is not by any means an easy thing to attain to. There are only two ways by which man can reach it. One is by being cultured, the other is by being corrupt. Country people have no opportunity of being either, so they stagnate." "Culture and corruption," echoed Dorian. "I have known something of both. It seems terrible to me now they should ever be found together. For I have a new ideal, Harry. I am going to alter. I think I have altered." "But don't let us talk about it any more. And don't try to persuade me that the first good action I have done for years, the first little bit of self-sacrifice I have ever known, is really a sort of sin. I want to be better. I am going to be better. Tell me something about yourself. What is going on in town? I have not been to the club for days." "The people are still discussing poor Basil's disappearance." "I should have thought they would have got tired of that by this time," said Dorian, pouring himself out some wine and frowning. "My dear boy, they've only been talking about it for 6 weeks, and the British public are really not equal to the mental strain of having more than one topic every 3 months. They have been very fortunate lately, however. They've had my own divorce case and Alan Campbell's suicide. Now they have got the mysterious disappearance of an artist. I suppose in about a fortnight we shall be told he has been seen in San Francisco. It's an odd thing, but everyone who disappears is said to be seen at San Francisco. It must be a delightful city." "What do you think has happened to Basil?" asked Dorian, holding up his burgundy against the light and wondering how it was he could discuss the matter so calmly. "I have not the slightest idea. If Basil chooses to hide himself, it's no business of mine. If he's dead, I don't want to think about him. Death is the only thing that ever terrifies me." "Why?" said the younger man wearily. "Because," said Lord Henry, "one can survive everything nowadays except that. Death and vulgarity are the only two facts in the 19th century one cannot explain away. Let us have our coffee in the music room, Dorian. You must play Chopin to me. The man with whom my wife ran away played Chopin exquisitely. Poor Victoria, I was very fond of her. The house is rather lonely without her." Dorian said nothing, but rose from the table and passing into the next room sat down to the piano and let his fingers stray across the white and black ivory of the keys. After the coffee had been brought in, he stopped and, looking over at Lord Henry, said, "Harry, did it ever occur to you Basil was murdered?" Lord Henry yawned. "Basil was very popular and always wore a Waterbury watch. Why should he have been murdered? He was not clever enough to have enemies. Of course he had a wonderful genius for painting, but a man can paint like Velasquez and yet be as dull as possible." "I was very fond of Basil," said Dorian, with a note of sadness in his voice. "But don't people say that he was murdered?" "Oh, some of the papers do. It does not seem to me to be at all probable. I know there are dreadful places in Paris, but Basil was not the sort of man to have gone to them. He had no curiosity." "What would you say, Harry, if I told you that I had murdered Basil?" said the younger man. He watched him intently after he'd spoken. "I would say, my dear fellow, that you are posing for a character that doesn't suit you. All crime is vulgar, just as all vulgarity is crime. It's not in you, Dorian, to commit a murder. I'm sorry if I hurt your vanity by saying so, but I assure you it's true. Crime belongs exclusively to the lower orders. I should fancy that crime is to them what art is to us, simply a method of procuring extraordinary sensations." "A method of procuring sensations? Do you think then that a man who has once committed a murder could possibly do the same crime again? Don't tell me that." "Oh, anything becomes a pleasure if one does it too often," cried Lord Henry, laughing. "That's one of the most important secrets of life. I should fancy, however, that murder is always a mistake. One should never do anything that one cannot talk about after dinner. But let us pass from poor Basil. I wish I could believe he had come to such a really romantic end as you suggest, but I can't. I dare say he fell into the Seine off an omnibus, and the conductor hushed up the scandal. Yes, I should fancy that was his end. I see him now on his back under those dull green waters, with the heavy barges floating over him and long weeds catching in his hair. Do you know, I don't think he would have done much more good work. During the last 10 years his painting had gone off very much. Dorian heaved a sigh, and Lord Henry strolled across the room and began to stroke the head of a curious Java parrot. Yes, he continued, turning around and taking his handkerchief out of his pocket, his painting had gone quite off. It seemed to me to have lost something. It had lost an ideal. When you and he ceased to be great friends, he ceased to be a great artist. What was it separated you? I suppose he bored you. If so, he never forgave you. It's a habit bores have. By the way, what has become of that wonderful portrait he did of you? I don't think I have seen it since he finished it. Oh, I remember you telling me years ago you had sent it down to Selby and that it got mislaid or stolen on the way. You never got it back. What a pity, it really was a masterpiece. I remember I wanted to buy it. I wish I had now. It belonged to Basil's best period. Did you advertise for it? You should. I forget, said Dorian. I suppose I did, but I never really liked it. I'm sorry I sat for it. The memory of the thing is hateful to me. Why do you talk of it? It used to remind me of those curious lines in some play, Hamlet, I think. Like the painting of a sorrow, a face without a heart. Yes, that's what it was like. Lord Henry laughed. If a man treats life artistically, his brain is his heart, he answered, sinking into an armchair. Dorian Gray shook his head and struck some soft chords on the piano. Like the painting of a sorrow, he repeated, a face without a heart. The elder man lay back and looked at him with half-closed eyes. By the way, Dorian, he said after a pause, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses, how does the quotation run, his own soul? The music jarred, and Dorian started and stared at his friend. Why do you ask me that, Harry? My dear fellow, said Lord Henry, I asked you because I thought you might be able to give me an answer, that's all. I was going through the park last Sunday, and close by the Marble Arch there stood a little crowd of shabby-looking people listening to some vulgar street preacher. I thought of telling the prophet that art had a soul, but that man had not. I am afraid, however, he would not have understood me. Don't, Harry. The soul is a terrible reality. It can be bought and sold and bartered away. It can be poisoned or made perfect. There's a soul in each one of us. I know it. Do you feel quite sure of that, Dorian? Quite sure. Ah, then it must be an illusion. The things one feels absolutely certain about are never true. That's the fatality of faith and the lessons of romance. How grave you are. Don't be so serious. What have you or I to do with the superstitions of our age? No, we have given up our belief in the soul. Play me something. Play me a nocturne, Dorian. And as you play, tell me in a low voice how you have kept your youth. You must have some secret. I am only 10 years older than you are, and I am wrinkled and worn and yellow. You are really wonderful, Dorian. You have never looked more charming than you do tonight. You remind me of the day I saw you first. You were rather cheeky, very shy, and absolutely extraordinary. You have changed, of course, but not in appearance. I wish you would tell me your secret. To get back my youth, I would do anything in the world, except take exercise, get up early, or be respectable. Youth, there's nothing like it. It's absurd to talk about the ignorance of youth. The only people to whose opinions I listen now with any respect are people much younger than myself. They seem in front of me. Life has revealed to them her latest wonders. As for the aged, I always contradict the aged. I do it on principle. If you ask them their opinion on something that happened yesterday, they solemnly give you their opinions current in 1820, when people wore high stocks, believed in everything, and knew absolutely nothing. How lovely that thing you are playing is. I wondered, did Chopin write it at Mallorca, with the sea weeping round the villa and the salt spray dashing against the panes? It is marvellously romantic. What a blessing it is that there is one art left to us that is not imitative. Don't stop. I want music tonight. It seems to me that you are the young Apollo, and that I am Marsyas listening to you. I have sorrows, Dorian, of my own that even you know nothing of. The tragedy of old age is not that one is old, but that one is young. I am amazed sometimes at my own sincerity. Ah, Dorian, how happy you are. What an exquisite life you have had. You have drunk deeply of everything. You have crushed the grapes against your palate. Nothing has been hidden from you. You are still the same. I am not the same, Harry. Yes, you are the same. I wonder what the rest of your life will be. Don't spoil it by renunciations. At present you are perfect. Don't make yourself incomplete. You are quite flawless now. You need not shake your head. You know you are. Beside, Dorian, don't deceive yourself. Life is not governed by will or intention. Life is a question of nerves and fibres and slowly built up cells in which thought hides itself and passion has its dreams. You may fancy yourself safe and think yourself strong, but a chance tone of colour in a room or a morning sky, a particular perfume you had once loved and that brings subtle memories with it, a line from a forgotten poem. I tell you, Dorian, that it is on things like these that our lives depend. Browning writes about that somewhere, but our own senses will imagine them for us. You have set yourself to music. Your days are your sonnets. Dorian rose up from the piano and passed his hand through his hair. Yes, life has been exquisite, he murmured, but I am not going to have the same life, Harry, and you must not say these extravagant things to me. You don't know everything about me. I think that if you did, even you would turn from me. You laugh. Don't laugh. Why have you stopped playing, Dorian? Go back and give me the nocturne over again. Look at that great honey-coloured moon that hangs in the dusky air. She is waiting for you to charm her, and if you play, she will come closer to the earth. You won't? Let us go to the club then. It's been a charming evening, and we must end it charmingly. There is someone at White's who wants immensely to know you. Young Lord Poole, Bournemouth's eldest son. He has already copied your neckties and has begged me to introduce him to you. He is quite delightful and rather reminds me of you. I hope not, said Dorian, with a sad look in his eyes. But I am tired tonight, Harry. I shan't go to the club. It's nearly 11 and I want to go to bed early. Do stay. You have never played so well as tonight. There was something in your touch that was wonderful. It had more expression than I have ever heard from it before. It is because I am going to be good, he answered, smiling. I am a little changed already. You cannot change to me, Dorian, said Lord Henry. You and I will always be friends. Yet you poisoned me with a book once. I should not forgive that. Harry, promise me you will never lend that book to anyone. It does harm. My dear boy, you are really beginning to moralise. You will soon be going on like the converted and the revivalist, warning people against all the sins of which you've grown tired. You're much too delightful to do that. Besides, it's no use. You and I are what we are, and will be what we will be. As for being poisoned by a book, there's no such thing as that. Art has no influence upon action. It annihilates the desire to act. It's superbly sterile. The books that the world calls immoral are books that shows the world its own shame. That is all. But we won't discuss literature. Come round tomorrow. I am going to ride at 11. We might go together and I will take you to lunch afterward with Lady Branksome. She's a charming woman and wants to consult you about some tapestries she's thinking of buying. Mind you come. Or shall we lunch with our little Duchess? She says she never sees you now. Perhaps you are tired of Gladys. I thought you would be. Her clever tongue gets on one's nerves. Well, in any case, be here at 11. Must I really come, Harry? Certainly. The park is quite lovely now. I don't think there have been such lilacs since the year I met you. Very well. I shall be here at 11, said Dorian. Good night, Harry. As he reached the door, he hesitated for a moment as if he had something more to say. Then he sighed and went out.